Greetings, Marsh here, and welcome to episode 90 of my modded Factorio playthrough. In this episode, we're going to build our slag processing setups, and then plan for processing crushed stone. Enjoy! So we gotta figure out where to put everything. Well, this thing fits rather nicely between these two, although it's a little narrower than the space. This might be a better item to put here because it fits. It's also in close proximity to these other items that also produce this mineral sludge. So we might want to keep those kind of close together. We could kind of squeeze it in here. This is actually going to get removed soon. Probably wouldn't be the worst idea to kind of get rid of it now. Just try to get this lined up. Seems like a good enough spot. Yeah, we're probably doing pretty good on nitric acid at this point. So we can pick all this up. Ooh, prospector is done. Can't tell if that output's any better or worse. Well, one thing to note is that Prospector didn't upgrade the speed of the infinite miners. Like, we still have just 0.5 ore per second, so the infinite ore is done here. But we can kind of get rid of that. And scan the new patch. There we go. The infinite ore miners are still mining, so they are producing something. It's just this is kind of a small patch of bobmonium, and we don't really have any alternates. Might have to. That's a good one. It's way out there. We're not that far off from having to do a big expansion on the base just to get ores, but as long as the ores are keeping up, we don't need to expand quite yet. And in fact, we can use that same coal line here for both. So that makes things a little easier. Let's just draw the belt out here, just to make sure it's lined up. Seems good. Looks like we didn't get the saline water hooked up here. Oh yes, we probably should have these clarifiers in place for the sulfuric wastewater, just in case we're overloaded. So how much would we need? Well, enough for 600, which is 4 clarifiers. Looks like bobmonium's finally catching up. So we've got our clarifiers. Let's put an inline tank before it as a buffer. And then an overflow valve. It's just easier to take care of these byproducts at the source if we're being overloaded. I'm not so sure if we want to be doing that for mineralized water and saline water, so I'm reconsidering that. But at least these things that make acid, that's basically the use for it. So if we're fine on acid resources, then there's no reason to be piping all this water around. Okay, we need to seed this once again. Just kind of plop it wherever, because it's okay. These are temporary. And we need a bunch of iron and steel. Okay, we've got to get the sulfur over here. This is just the temporary ziggity-zaggity belt. So let's connect to the temporary ziggity-zaggity belt, because we can move it later when we know exactly where it needs to go. But for now, that's good enough. So now we have to get rid of this saline water. I think it's time to hook it up to the main base. Where is the nearest saline water? To me, it looks like saline water stops here. Isn't it supposed to be connected to the whole network? Yes, it just kind of does a little zigzag there. Alright, and then let's run the saline water down here. And I'll probably need to do a centralized clarifier setup. We'll have to see if throughput is going to be a problem taking fluids from here and taking them all the way down here, but something like this, except much larger and not just jammed in here, but this is ultimately where all the saline water is going to go. It's definitely going up, so it's making it there. You know, while I'm thinking about it, let's get the rest of the saline water hooked up. So that's one less thing to worry about. Let's see, we had our saline water clarifier here. Let's just get rid of that tank. And send it down. There we go. All the factory saline water's hooked up. Would kind of be nice to hook up all the mineralized water too. Let's see. Do we have our filters? Not quite enough. We need more resources. Let's see. Mineralized water is conveniently right here. So let's grab onto it and go down. Okay, let's grab the mineralized water. Let's see, I would like to supply some mineralized water to this setup. Although I guess it won't really need it, because the setup should be slightly crushed stone positive. So it should be a closed loop system and not require anything from the base. So we'll just have to, we'll have to see if it works. It should. We'll change it if it doesn't. And lastly, we need the mineralized water from up here, but we can get rid of the single clarifier here. Let's see, let's just get rid of this, because this whole thing's going to be moved soon. There we go, mineralized water is hooked up. Let's get rid of all these extra pipes. Does anything else need to be hooked up here? Sulfuric acid, but that's going to wait until acid processing is done. Okay, I think that setup's complete. We still have to do concrete, and concrete does slide in here just perfectly. And then this is much better fit. Let's see, does it go up or down? Well, these bricks might eventually need to be droned away. Down probably makes more sense here. Something like that ought to work. Now the drones have a lot of work in front of them. Bobmonium caught up, so the factory should be pretty good. Well, we have some other research we can take care of. Let's see. We can continue our research. We're almost done with the red and green science for the character. Let's keep that going. While the robots are working, we can start hooking up some resources. We need to get the slag in here, which is right there, which also needs to be lined up right here, because that's going to be slag as well. And right here we need to get silicon, which is going to come from way over there. It's going to be a pretty lonely belt. Let's wait until everything else is placed first. This setup won't be able to build anyway because we're going to be waiting on stone bricks. But we can still kind of place these belts down. Let's see, we did have this carbon dioxide which we needed to bring back to the base as well. We do have some carbon dioxide conveniently right here. Okay, now we need to get water and mud water in here. Oh, we got a little lake down there that we can use. Also, we've got to get this mud belt down here. That can go in through there. So this first one is water. This other one is the seafloor pump. There we go. Or at least producing some limestone. But we need to get some fuel in here, which we can kind of do this way. It's a little bit of a zigzag here, but we can get it to work going this other direction. Additionally, we have all this mud we need to take out too. Oh, we're missing something. Lead. We're full on nickel again. Man, I've just been producing armor-piercing magazines and they keep filling up. But that's really the only thing we have to use them on right now. Okay, we need to drone out this mud. So we're going to have to pick this up for a second. Let's put a supply depot in there. And since this is a byproduct depot, we need to have a network in here to prevent it from running too often. So we'll connect to our combinator, then combinator to the writer. So the combinator reads for mud, then send a green signal, and then this will enable the depot if there is a green signal greater than 0. So if it's working correctly, it should all be off, which is the case. And then eventually, when this gets enabled, the mud drone from all the way down here will head out and go over there and get the mud. Well, that stopped quickly, because now there is limestone in here, and we need to get a fuel in here, which we can also do with a request depot. I believe the factory's current fuel type is charcoal, and there's a depot right here handling it. Probably can save a whole lot of driving time if it was hooked up here instead, so it didn't have to make this trip, but I won't worry about it for now, since we've already got a depot right here supplying the charcoal. Not sure how many drones we're going to need for all this, but let's request just a single drone's worth for now. And it'll probably take a while to see this activated because we need a fuel drone here first. But the fuel drone should be on its way. It is. Okay, we need to do the stone crushing. Although that kind of depends on where the stone processing will happen. This is a nice little square right here, but I'm kind of hesitant to place it. It's small enough where it can fit anywhere. This probably should be right next to where stone is being stored, so... Because we're taking a dense resource of slag and turning it into a not dense resource of crushed stone, so it probably makes more sense to put this near wherever crushed stone is going to happen. So we need to get slag up here. And in fact, storing slag right here might be the best place to do it. Just kind of depends on where the stone processing happens. But since slag is being stored all the way up here, it does kind of make sense to send it down. Probably put it like right here. So we're going to have 3 belts going through here. It needs to come down in there. We also want to empty this thing of all its slag, so we can just do a little loop here to get that done. Alright, the storehouse is full. Let's limit it back up again. And get rid of all this temporary stuff. Okay, so somewhere over here ought to work alright. Now we need to get the slag hooked up to the right spots. I believe it is this yellow one right there. And then the slag gets distributed. Good enough. Hey, it looks like the charcoal arrived. I don't think we're going to be needing it very fast, so that one inserter, or those 2 inserters ought to be alright. Yeah, we just need 0.6 per second, so that is more than enough. And there goes the lime. Getting distributed. Looking good. And quickly filling up because it's not running. Okay, let's get the slag in here. Not much is going to happen because we don't have any sulfuric acid. A light up here would be kind of nice. Alright, it's all in there. So we've got to set up the logic for the dump, because we do need to create this mineral sludge in order to make catalyst, but we don't want to just completely dump everything, because we want to have some available if we do need to make catalyst. We probably can control this on the back end with the crystallizers, where we have the crystallizers that are making the catalyst always make the catalyst, and then the ones that are dumping the resources into making ores could just be turned on and off based on the status of this warehouse. So this ought to work fine. Okay, what else can we hook up? Oh, we can get silicon here. And how much of that do we need? I think it was like 20, 24, so quite a bit. And we'll just pull off of one of these warehouses. Probably want to leave a few spaces in here just for anything that might go in there. Don't have to squish it in here super tight. Yep, now that we pulled a little bit of silicon out, the process starts up again just to top off the warehouse, but it's only this one line because none of the other methods are going to turn on. just the most ideal one. I did realize a small flaw is that we're producing the concrete bricks, but we're not producing the concrete flooring that we use to cover the base, which is definitely an oversight. I would like to make some refined concrete. Looks like the only way to manufacture it is with steel plates and iron rods. But one thing we can do is just pipe off of these assembling machines here. They won't be able to produce both concrete bricks and concrete floor at the same time, but that's okay. We don't have such a huge need of them where both of them have to run simultaneously. But we'll get that fixed later. Let's just get this system all hooked up. Ah, we still need to get water hooked up. Well, it's all green. Oh, except these guys. It's just this side. There we go. It should be mostly good. Just got to get rid of this cement that got mixed in. Okay, we need to hook up the water. Which is right there. Looking good. Now these aren't going to run because we need stone bricks, and stone bricks is derivative of crushed stone. So we need to get that part set up. But we can pipe off of this and create our concrete floors. We can look at this to get an idea of how much we have. We're going to have 300 liquid concrete. So we can say 300. That's going to require 40 assembly machines. Looks like we're short on all kinds of stuff. Is that just the factory falling behind? Yep. So, nothing wrong here. Okay, well this space over here is convenient enough. Now we just need to figure out a pattern, and honestly, something tells me this exact pattern will work just fine. It just will have one less belt, basically. Yeah, I think it's going to be pretty much identical. We'll have to modify it to make it ideal, but for now we can just pick it up and move it over here, and let's just move it up a bit so we can get rid of that right there, and actually probably just pick up all these inserters. Because this one will do just fine. Let's switch these over to concrete number 2. Okay, connect them all on the top. Then get them connected to here as well. And there we go. Looking good. Don't really need to store it in anything right now, because we're already producing it over here. And we don't even really need any of it because our base is completely covered in concrete now. So it's about time to start making refined concrete. But that requires iron and steel, and let's wait until we're smelting that locally here in our new setup before we worry about making that concrete. But it all seems to be working pretty good. How are our fluids holding up? Carbon dioxide is building, but fine. Mineralized water is gone. That makes sense because we're using it all up. Saline water is okay. Lubricant's okay. Everything seems to be working. We still need to hook up our phosphorus sorting, which will convert crushed stone into slag. But that probably also makes sense to have that happen near where crushed stone is as opposed to where slag is. So it looks like crushed stone is the next thing on the list of things to do. So crushed stone goes into quite a few things. It goes into mineralized water, and we are creating some mineralized water for the purposes of processing our geodes. But it still might be worth making some of it and putting it into the pipes, and then just changing the way that the algae machines work to only work if there's an excess of mineralized water. And a big one is stone. Going to turn everything into stone. Calcium chloride's another big one. But we can do that in acid processing. Then we need to do the stone sorting into phosphorus ore. And also we have slag slurry. And stone goes into quite a few things. We basically need to send it to the bus. But the big thing we can do right here is stone bricks, because we need to supply stone bricks down here so we can make our concrete bricks. So out of all these things, they all kind of have similar priorities. You could probably just let them run all simultaneously. Similar to how we're handling slag here, that the logic to control the dump of slag can be controlled with a pump to control the outputs of these filtration units. But the best dump is probably slag slurry, just like we're doing slurry with everything else. So we've got a few machines to figure out here. First, how many bricks do we need? That might control the ultimate setup to this. Well, we need 30 concrete bricks a second, so that's 30 stone bricks. Let's get this set to the correct fuel of charcoal. But in addition, we're probably going to want some extra stone to send on the bus just in case. And I'm not sure what a decent number for that is, but we can just say 30. So now that's 60 assembling machines. What about mineralized water? Well, let's see what it goes into. It does go into that crystal slurry. And of course, green algae. Gardens. Honestly, not much. I think at this point, we can just not worry about it. And then when the time comes, if we need mineralized water, it would be easy enough just to pull a little stone off, make the necessary machines. So we probably don't need to worry about that right now. Calcium chloride's the same thing. We can just pull that off as necessary. And we've already figured out stone sorting. We wanted 3 machines, and that's small enough where it can fit anywhere. It requires 60. And then the big one is slag slurry, and since this is the dump, it needs to have the full capacity of the entire factory, just in case we need to dump all of it. So we search slurry from crushed stone, and it takes 25 crushed stone for the recipe, so it's quite a bit. So let's calculate by input, and our input is, I believe the total capacity of the factory is all 6 of these belts that they're maxed out. Interesting, that belt's not going. Well, I guess because it's full. Full on crushed stone again. But it's set up exactly. And as it turns out, this setting is pretty good because we have 6 red belts, which is 180 per second, and that is exactly the output if we were making solely bricks, or the stone that goes into the bricks. So we need to set that the same way, based on 180. It really doesn't require that much to dump it all. It's going to be a lot of belts for just 10 liquefiers. But then that creates slag slurry, which we need to filter in 20 filtration units. Wonder if we can copy a setup, because this one is 40 filtration units. So if we just take that setup and cut it in half, that would basically cover the stone. But let's figure out all of the inputs and outputs and all of that. So we need to process a sulfuric wastewater. So we'll handle that. Calculate based on input. And we also need to create the input of purified water. So we need 2 hydro plants for the byproducts, and just barely, but 2 hydro plants for the input. And then these coal filters. We need 2 machines. So yeah, I kind of want to copy the same design, since it's very similar to this. Well, we can either cut it in half on the bottom, or cut like one whole side off of it. Make it nice and narrow. That might work pretty well. And then we'll just have to put the machines on each side. But that's going to have to wait until the next episode. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.